The Dodgers signing yet another all-star level player shows exactly why baseball is broken, but not in the way you think. We've already seen the news that LA signed a power-hitting outfielder that's going to massively improve their roster in 2024. And it's led to a massive outcry from baseball media and fans wondering when we're going to get a salary cap to stop these big market teams. So to discuss baseball's competitive balance issue, let's first compare it to the NBA, where salary cap issues have been a topic for discussion for years, and whose salary structure is very similar to that of the MLB's. And after making these comparisons to the NBA, it'll be clear why the MLB's current collective bargaining agreement allows baseball's biggest problem to happen. It's cheap owners. In fact, after I outline this very simple argument, it's going to show exactly why baseball's owners want the Dodgers to be a super team most. It's extremely counterintuitive, but for them, it's the most economic decision. So let's understand the NBA situation and why it's very similar to the MLB's, but with one small distinction. Distinction that means that even small market teams can compete in the NBA, while in the MLB, they're forced to rot. And hint, it's not a salary cap, but actually a salary floor that makes this distinction possible. The NBA actually has a very similar salary structure to that of the MLB. They have a soft cap, meaning that if you go above a certain threshold, you have to pay extra taxes on that salary. For this season, it's a $165 million threshold, meaning that if your salary was $170 million, you would have to pay extra taxes on that $5 million. MLB is very similar to this with their threshold at $230 million. So what's the difference between the NBA and the MLB? While both have thresholds at the top, the NBA also has lower thresholds that teams must also satisfy. For one, they have a first level cap of $135 million, where teams can only go over this if they get an exemption. But it's very easy to go over this cap if you want to. It's exactly why sign and trade deals happen, because supermax deals allow you to go over that threshold. And there's also a bunch of other exemptions you can do as well. But the biggest difference between the NBA and the MLB is the salary floor, which is 90% of that first threshold, which means that every team must have a salary above that threshold, which for this year is $122 million. But the problem is that the MLB does not have this, and it's why teams like the Oakland A's consistently pay $0 in free agency, because they know that they won't have to in order to make money. And while that seems like an outlandish claim, once you understand the revenue sharing agreement in the MLB, you'll understand exactly why this is true. Let's look at how many teams are above a theoretical salary floor if it was similar to the NBA situation. First off, we can calculate what a theoretical first cap would be, and then from that, what 90% of that would be. So for the MLB, for this year, it would be $170 million floor, $189 million first cap, and a $230 million luxury tax. But let's look at how many teams are above these thresholds in the NBA and how many fewer teams are above them in the MLB. In the NBA, by definition, 100% of teams are going to be above the salary floor. But here's how many teams in the MLB that would be. That is that gold figure. Any team above that is above the salary floor that we calculated of $170 million. So only 60% of MLB teams are above this theoretical salary floor. And when we go to the salary cap, 93% of NBA teams are still above this first threshold, while only 15 or 50% of the teams in the MLB are. Finally, this shows exactly why we don't need a salary cap in the MLB, because in the NBA, 33.3% of teams are above the highest threshold to create a quote-unquote super team. But in the MLB, last year, that was only 8 of the 30 teams, or 26.7% of teams. That's right, less teams were above this highest threshold in the MLB than in the NBA. And yet no one is talking about super teams in the NBA right now. So it begs the question of, why do MLB owners want this, and how can they make so much money without spending a single dime in free agency? But when you understand that 50% of a team's revenue is put into a pot that is then distributed equally amongst all teams, you can understand exactly why the cheapest owners don't want to spend money, because it's the best decision from an economics perspective. Why would you spend millions and millions of dollars to sign free agents when you don't need to, in order to get $118 million before selling a single ticket, or $91 million from the national TV pot? That's right, a team like the Oakland A's can get $200 million before selling a single ticket. They'll get this money regardless of if they sell any tickets or sign any free agents or win any game. And it's why they have exactly no incentive to do it. Why they're consistently at the bottom of this list every single year. Which is why, although it makes sense from an economics perspective, it's incredibly disheartening as a baseball fan to see that baseball revenues are increasing by billions and billions of dollars every year, but player salaries are actually decreasing. More and more owners are realizing that in order to make as much money as possible, they have to spend as little as possible on the final product, which hurts the fans of their teams the most. Which is exactly why CBS Sports reports that there isn't much evidence supporting the notion that salary caps and or luxury tax encourage parity or competitive balance. Rather, the top feature of the competitive balance tax seems to be providing owners with a legitimate sounding excuse for saving money. So by saying you want a salary tax, you're doing exactly what the owners want you to do. You're arguing for the exact system that allows them to spend less money. That is absolutely insane, but it's even more insane when you frame it like this, that the owners of teams like the Pirates, the A's, and the Marlins want Shohei Ohtani, Yoshi Yamamoto, Tyler Glasnow, and Teoscar Hernandez to go to the Dodgers. Because if the Dodgers have more money, it means that there's more money going into the small market owners' pockets as well. It's extremely obvious when we understand why Ohtani and the other biggest stars going to the biggest brand in baseball is good for these small market owners. One Japanese economist found that by Ohtani going to the Dodgers, he's going to generate 64.3 billion yen next year compared to 50 billion yen if he stayed with the Los Angeles Angels. It's a 28% increase by going to the Dodgers versus staying with the Angels. By going to a more marketable team, Ohtani is going to generate more money not only for the Dodgers, but half of those profits that he generates are going to go to the rest of the teams as well. Baseball's owners want the biggest stars to go to the biggest teams, but they will also be able to reap the benefits as well without doing anything. So yes, on paper, the Dodgers have a super team, but a World Series win in 2024 is far from guaranteed. But you know what is guaranteed? The hundreds of millions of dollars that are going into cheap owners' pockets for them to do nothing yet again. Tag a small market fan who's been complaining about super teams so they can understand why doing that is making baseball's biggest problem worse.